I'm Ellen Murray, 33, and I've spent years sacrificing for my family, always standing behind them, hoping one day I'd be acknowledged and valued. But last month at my parents' 35th wedding anniversary party in suburban Atlanta, everything changed. I pulled up to their house with a gift in hand dressed to celebrate their milestone. I'd driven over an hour excited at the thought of finally sharing a night together as a family. I rang the bell. My mother opened the door, glanced at me, and coldly said, "No room left." My brother, standing in the dining room, smirked as if it were some kind of victory. I froze, the gift heavy in my hands, while the sound of laughter from inside cut like knives. They didn't even let me step inside. No explanation, no apology, just those three words. No room left and his smug grin. I didn't yell or make a scene. I simply turned, walked back to my car, and drove away, leaving the lights and music behind. That night, in the silence, I realized the truth. I had been cast aside, as if I didn't exist. A week later, they received a letter from my lawyer. The calls poured in, but I had my own three words ready. No room here. If you were in my place, pushed away by the very family you sacrificed everything for, would you walk away quietly or fight back? Share your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear from you. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept drifting back to when I was 18, sketching under the dim light of my bedroom lamp, dreaming of art school in New York. My high school art teacher had once framed one of my watercolors, saying it could hang in a gallery someday. I poured hours into every brushstroke, imagining a life where my paintings told stories. But then my brother ran up a gambling debt, $5,000 from late-night poker games at a shady bar. My mom sat me down, her voice firm. "You need to help him, Ellen. That's what family does." I didn't argue. I gave up my savings, took a waitressing job at a diner, and sent every cent to clean up his mess. 2 years later, he got accepted to a small college in Georgia. His tuition was $10,000, and once again my parents turned to me. "You're the responsible one," my dad said, as if it were my duty to fix everything. So I paid, working double shifts while my sketchbooks collected dust under the bed. I kept telling myself I was holding us together. They never thanked me, just nodded as if it was expected. By my mid-20s, I realized art wasn't coming back. I enrolled in night classes, studied accounting, and worked my way into a finance firm in Atlanta. At 30, I had become a senior accountant, earning close to six figures, helping prepare reports and monitor budgets for several large clients, some of them multi-million-dollar companies. It wasn't glamorous, but I was proud of what I'd built, proud enough to believe my parents were too. I even bought them a house in suburban Atlanta worth around $200,000 with the mortgage in my name. At the housewarming, my mom hugged me in front of the neighbors and called me our rock. My dad raised a glass, saying I'd done them proud. But behind closed doors, it was different. Each month came another request: car payments, utility bills, even money to build a new deck for their backyard. "You've got the money," my mom would say, like it was nothing. And I kept paying, convincing myself it meant we were close. My brother was worse. He'd breeze into town full of charm, asking for cash for his next big idea. But he was gambling again, 10,000 here, 15,000 there. Last year, he needed $20,000 for a surefire restaurant startup that collapsed within 3 months. He'd laugh and say he'd pay me back, but he never did. "You're doing well, Ellen." He'd grin, patting my shoulder. My husband saw through it. "They're using you," he warned. His voice was sharp, but I'd shake my head, insisting that family was messy, that this was just how it worked. I believed they needed me, that I was the glue holding everyone together. I had spent years proving myself, graduating near the top of my class, landing solid clients, even teaching accounting workshops at the community college. My parents bragged about me at church, showing off photos of my office downtown, but never once asked about my actual work. They only asked for more: $500 for a new fridge, $2,000 for a family reunion trip I wasn't even invited to. And my brother never stopped: new suits, car leases, weekend trips to Vegas. Over the years, I gave him around $30,000, every dollar alone he promised to repay. He never did, just smiled and called me sis. My husband's warnings grew louder, but I kept writing checks thinking it was my role. Until that night at their anniversary party when the truth hit me, they didn't see me as family at all. To them, I was just a wallet. I spent hours getting ready. It was my parents' 35th wedding anniversary, a big deal in our family, and I wanted to show up perfectly. I picked out a navy dress, wrapped a crystal vase I'd spent $200 on, and drove an hour from my Atlanta apartment to their suburban house. I was excited, picturing my mom's smile, my dad's toast, maybe even a rare moment where we felt like a real family. I checked my watch at 6:55, parked, and walked to the front door, gift in hand. The windows glowed, voices and laughter spilling out. I rang the bell, my heart light for once. My mom opened the door, her face blank. Before I could speak, she cut me off. "You're late and you're causing trouble?" she said, her voice cold. I blinked, confused. "I wasn't late. Mom, I'm here for your anniversary." "I brought this," I said, lifting the vase. She didn't even glance at it. "There's no room left," she said, stepping back. My brother appeared behind her, leaning against the doorframe, his smirk sharp. "Ellen, you always make everything a big deal," he said, his voice loud enough for the relatives inside to hear. Laughter erupted from the dining room, cousins, aunts, uncles, their voices mocking. My stomach twisted. I stood there frozen, the vase heavy in my hands. I tried again, my voice shaking. "Mom, I drove all this way. You invited me?" She rolled her eyes. "Don't make a scene. You shouldn't have come." My brother laughed again, crueler now. "Go home, sis, stop being so dramatic." I saw my dad in the background, sipping his drink, saying nothing. The relatives' laughter grew louder, like I was some kind of joke. It hit me then. This wasn't an accident. They'd invited me to humiliate me, to show everyone I didn't belong. I'd given them everything, money, years, my dreams, and they'd planned this moment to put me in my place. I turned, walked back to my car, the night air cold against my skin. I wasn't going to beg. They didn't just shut me out. They wanted me to feel small. The next morning, I made a decision. It was time to take control. I called Gregory Walsh, my lawyer, a sharp attorney I'd met through work. I'd never needed him for personal matters before, but now I did. "Gregory," I said, my voice steady, "I need you to draft 2 letters. One to reclaim the house I bought for my parents. $200,000, my name on the deed. The other to demand my brother repay the $20,000 he owes me." Gregory didn't hesitate. "Give me the details, Ellen. I'll have it done by noon." I laid it all out: the house I'd purchased 5 years ago, every payment I'd made, and the loans to my brother, his gambling debts, his failed ventures, all documented in emails and bank transfers. By 10 o'clock, Gregory had the letters ready, formal and airtight, addressed to my parents and my brother. I drove to his office, signed the papers, and watched him send them certified mail. The first letter gave my parents 30 days to vacate the house or buy it from me at market value. The second demanded my brother repay the $20,000 within 60 days with interest or face legal action. I felt a weight lift, not anger but clarity. I'd been their bank for too long. Now I was drawing a line. Gregory shook my hand, his tone firm. "They'll get the message. If they don't comply, we'll escalate." I nodded, thanked him, and left, my resolve hardening. By evening, my phone lit up. My mom's number flashed first. I let it go to voicemail. "Ellen, what is this nonsense?" Her voice snapped, shrill and panicked. "You can't take our house. We raised you." An hour later, my dad called, his tone softer but desperate. "Ellen, let's talk about this. You don't need to do this." I didn't pick up. My brother's call came next, his voice a mix of charm and anger. "Come on, sis. You're really going to sue me over $20,000? That's low. I ignored that too. Over the next 3 days, the calls kept coming. My mom left 7 messages each, one sharper accusing me of betraying the family, of being selfish. "You owe us," she said in one, her voice trembling with rage. My dad's messages grew pleading, mentioning their fixed income, how they couldn't afford a new place. My brother sent texts alternating between apologies and insults. "I'll pay you back, Ellen, just chill," one read followed by, "You're acting like a jerk." I didn't respond to any of them. Each unanswered call felt like a step toward freedom. I sat with my husband that night, the phone buzzing again. He squeezed my hand. "You're doing the right thing," he said. I nodded, but my chest still ached. I'd spent decades trying to earn their love, thinking my sacrifices would matter. But they'd shown me who they were, people who'd humiliate me in front of relatives, then panic when I stopped playing their game. The house wasn't just a house. It was my leverage, my way to say enough. The $20,000 wasn't just money. It was every promise my brother broke, every smirk he'd thrown my way. I wasn't doing this for revenge. It was about respect, the kind they'd never given me. I turned off my phone, the silence louder than their voices. A week later, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find my mother standing there, her face tight with anger, arms folded across her chest. She didn't wait for an invitation. She pushed straight into the living room. "Ellen, what are you doing to us?" She snapped, her voice sharp as glass. On the sofa sat Sharon Bell, my best friend since college, lounging with a glass of wine that caught the light. She lifted her eyes, one brow arched quietly, observing as if waiting to see how I would handle this. I shut the door behind me, my heart racing but my resolve steady. I'd ignored the calls, the pleading voicemails, the accusations. Now my mother had come in person and I was ready. She unleashed her fury like a storm. "You're tearing this family apart," she said, pacing the room. "Those letters threatening to take our house, demanding money from your brother. What kind of daughter does that?" Her voice cracked, not with sorrow but with outrage, as if I had betrayed her by daring to stand up for myself. She stopped, pointing a finger at me. "We need that house, Ellen. You can't throw us out. And your brother, he's trying to get back on his feet. You have money. Why can't you keep helping us?" I stood there, letting her words wash over me. I'd heard them all before, the guilt, the demands, the assumption that I would fix everything. But this time, they no longer held power. I drew a steady breath, my voice calm but firm. "Mom, there's no room here either," I said, echoing her words from the party. Her eyes widened as if I'd struck her. "You shut me out, humiliated me in front of everyone, and now you're here asking for more. I'm done." I didn't stop. "I paid for your house. I covered your bills. I gave my brother thousands of dollars he never paid back. You don't get to demand anything from me anymore." Her face flushed red, her voice rising. "You're selfish, Ellen. You think you're better than us with your fancy job and your big apartment. You're destroying us." I almost laughed at the irony. Destroying them, I had sacrificed everything while they only took. I turned to Sharon. She set her glass down, her gaze hard. "Enough," Sharon said, her tone sharp and unwavering. "Ellen has given far more than you ever deserved. For years she's sacrificed, and all you've done is throw it back in her face. You don't get to use guilt as a weapon anymore." My mother spun toward, her eyes narrowing. "This is none of your business." Sharon didn't flinch, stepping forward. "It is when you're standing in her home attacking her. Ellen is not alone. She has people who actually care." A warmth spread through my chest, Sharon's words bracing me like armor. My mother's face flickered between shock and fury before she turned on her heel and stormed out the door, slamming behind her. I sank into the couch, my hands trembling. Sharon sat beside me, resting a hand on my shoulder. "You did well," she said softly. "You stood your ground." I nodded, the weight of the confrontation settling over me. My mother's words still stung, but they no longer had the power to break me. For the first time, I felt free, not from anger, but from the crushing weight of their expectations. And I knew one thing with certainty: I was never going back. 2 weeks after the party, I heard a knock. I opened the door to find Martin Gray, my grandfather, standing on my porch, his old tweed cap in hand. His face was softer than my mom's had been, but his eyes carried a weight like he'd come with a purpose. I invited him in, my stomach tightening. Martin had always been the quiet one in the family, the one who listened more than he spoke. I hadn't seen him since the party, where he'd stood in the corner silent while my mom shut me out. "Ellen," he said, settling into my armchair, "I need to talk about what's happening with your parents." I nodded, bracing myself, unsure if he was here to defend them or to understand. He leaned forward, his voice low. "Your mom and dad are upset about the house, the letters. They say you're being unfair." I took a breath, ready to explain, but he raised a hand. "Let me finish. I know what they did at the party wasn't right. I saw it, your mom turning you away, your brother mocking you. I should have spoken up." His admission caught me off guard. I told him everything: how I'd arrived early with a gift, how my mom called me a troublemaker, how my brother's laughter echoed with the relatives. I told him about the years I'd given them money, the house I'd bought for $200,000, the loans to my brother that were never repaid. Martin listened, his face creasing with regret. "I didn't know it was that bad," he said softly. "I thought you were all close." I shook my head. "They used me, Grandpa. I'm done being their fix for everything." He nodded slowly, his hands folded. "I came to ask you to reconsider, but hearing this, I can't blame you. You've got a right to protect yourself." His words felt like a small victory, a crack in the family's wall against me. He stood, hugged me tightly, and said, "You're stronger than they think, Ellen." After he left, I felt lighter, like someone finally saw me. Later that evening, Sharon came over, her phone in hand, her expression grim. "You need to see this," she said, showing me a post on social media. My brother had written a long rant calling me selfish, saying I was destroying the family by demanding the house and the $20,000 he owed. He painted himself as the victim, claiming I'd always held my money over their heads. The post had likes from cousins, even an aunt. My chest tightened, but Sharon grabbed my hand. "He's lying to save face," she said. "Anyone who knows you will see through this." Her words steadied me. I wasn't going to let his lies pull me back into their chaos. I had Martin's support, Sharon's loyalty, and my own resolve. That was enough. 2 months had passed since that fateful night. I got a call. It was Sharon, her voice calm but urgent. "Ellen, your parents are out of the house," she said. The legal process had moved faster than I expected. Gregory Walsh, my lawyer, had finalized the paperwork, and the house my house bought for $200,000 was no longer my parents' home. Charles and Barbara had 30 days to vacate after the letters were sent, and they hadn't fought back. With their limited retirement income, they'd rented a small one-bedroom apartment on the edge of Atlanta, a far cry from the spacious suburban home they'd thrown their anniversary party in. Sharon had heard it from a cousin who'd seen them moving their belongings packed into a rented van, their faces drawn with exhaustion. I didn't feel triumph, just a quiet sense of finality. They'd made their choices, and so had I. My brother was no better off. Todd, drowning in his own debts, credit cards, loans, gambling losses, couldn't lift a finger to help them. Sharon told me he'd been dodging calls from creditors, his latest get-rich scheme collapsing under the weight of his recklessness. The $20,000 I demanded from him remained unpaid, and Gregory had already filed a claim in court. Todd's social media rants had quieted after his last post calling me selfish, but the damage was done. He'd burned through whatever goodwill he had left, and now he was stuck, unable to play the hero for our parents. I pictured him scrambling, making excuses, but it didn't bring me joy. It just confirmed what I'd always known: he'd never change. The family didn't stay silent, though. My parents started whispering to relatives, spinning a story that I'd abandoned them, left them homeless out of spite. At a family barbecue I wasn't invited to, my mom had reportedly teared up, saying Ellen turned her back on us after all we did for her. My dad, quieter but no less bitter, told an uncle I'd always been ungrateful. They painted me as the villain, the cold daughter who'd taken their home and demanded money from her struggling brother. I heard about it through Sharon, who'd been at the barbecue watching their performance with disgust. "They're lying to anyone who'll listen," she told me, her voice sharp. "But it's not working." To my surprise, the relatives didn't buy their story. My cousin Laura called me a few days later, her tone hesitant but kind. "Ellen, I heard what happened at the party," she said. "I didn't know they'd treated you like that." She'd talked to Martin, my grandfather, who'd shared my side, how I'd been turned away, humiliated after years of footing their bills. Other cousins started reaching out, some apologizing for staying silent that night, others saying they'd always suspected my parents leaned on me too much. An aunt even sent a text. "You did what you had to do." Their support wasn't loud, but it was there, a quiet shift that left my parents' narrative crumbling. No one offered to help them move or pay their rent. The family they'd tried to rally against me was slipping away. I sat with Sharon that evening, going over the calls and texts. "They thought they could turn everyone against you," she said, shaking her head. "But people aren't as blind as they hoped." I nodded, feeling a weight lift, not because I'd won, but because I wasn't alone. My parents and brother had built their lives on taking from me, assuming I'd always give in. Now they were facing the consequences, and the relatives they'd counted on weren't rushing to their side. I looked out my window, the Atlanta skyline glowing in the distance. The house, the money, the years I'd given it was all behind me. I'd taken my life back, and no amount of their gossip could change that. 2 years later, I felt lighter. The weight of my family's expectations had lifted, replaced by a freedom I hadn't known since I was a kid. I'd thrown myself into my career, taking on bigger clients at the accounting firm, earning a promotion that came with a corner office and a view of Atlanta's skyline. David, my husband, was my anchor, planning weekend hikes, cooking dinners together, building a life that felt like mine. We'd started talking about traveling, maybe a trip to Italy, something I'd never dared dream of when I was funneling money to my parents and brother. I wasn't rich, but I was no longer their bank. My days were filled with purpose, work, laughter, moments that belonged to me. I heard about my family through snippets, mostly from Sharon. My parents, Charles and Barbara, were still in their cramped Atlanta apartment, scraping by on their retirement checks. The house I'd bought for $200,000 was sold, the proceeds sitting in my savings untouched. They never reached out, not even an apology, just silence, laced with resentment. Sharon said my mom had tried calling relatives for help, but got only polite excuses. My dad, quieter now, spent his days at a local diner nursing coffee and avoiding questions about me. They hadn't changed, still clinging to their narrative that I'd betrayed them, never admitting their role in pushing me away. My brother Todd was worse off. His debts had piled higher, credit cards, loans, another failed scheme that left him owing thousands. The $20,000 I'd demanded through the courts remained unpaid, and Gregory Walsh had secured a judgment against him. Sharon showed me a photo from a cousin's wedding I hadn't been invited to. Todd looked worn. His charm faded, no longer the golden boy. He'd stopped posting online after his selfish rant about me flopped, ignored by most of the family. He never said sorry, never acknowledged the years I'd bailed him out. Instead, he doubled down, telling anyone who'd listen that I'd ruined everything. But no one was listening anymore. I thought about them sometimes, not with anger, but with clarity. I'd spent decades trying to earn their love, thinking my sacrifices, my art, my savings, my time would make them see me. But they never did. That night at the party, when my mom said there was no room and my brother laughed, wasn't just a rejection, it was a truth. They didn't value me, and no amount of giving would change that. I'd drawn a line, not out of spite, but to protect myself. The lesson was hard-won. Setting boundaries with people who don't respect you isn't selfish, it's survival. I looked at David, at the life we were building, and knew I'd made the right choice. I was finally free.